to affirm the position that teacher tenure should be abolished. And now I refute my opponent's claims against us. To review, our three main claims are that teacher tenure causes complacency, teacher tenure makes it hard to remove underperforming teachers because the process is too long, and teacher tenure is costly. For the first claim, teacher tenure causes complacency, in the article Tenure Pros and Cons, it says, the system for evaluating teachers who are tenured also has flaws. The district conducts evaluations of tenured teachers every other year to ensure that their teaching is still effective. However, the teachers who have been teaching for over a decade can opt to skip an evaluation cycle and be evaluated every 4 years instead. This means that the teachers who receive tenure are given the opportunity to slack off and not be up to par the 4 years they choose to opt out of the evaluation, and they won't be as motivated to try new things, but they're just going to stick in their same place if they get a good review anyways. In the article, How to Grade Teachers by Marcus A. Winters, he says, in a 2009 survey of teachers in 4 large public school districts, found that 43% of teachers believe there is at least one tenured teacher in their schools who should be removed from the classroom. When one teacher's own co-workers can see a lack of performance, that should be a sign that the system isn't doing its job. For our second claim, we believe teacher tenure makes it hard to remove underperforming teachers because the process is too long. In Emily Abbott's article, What is Teacher Tenure Anyway?, Bruce McBeer, a school administrative union director, stated, he estimated that building a successful case against an ineffective teacher takes 2 or 3 years and at least 20 evaluations, even though the rules don't require it. It's just a lot of paperwork that's really unnecessary, and it may or may not even fire an ineffective teacher. In the same article, she also said, local school districts also sign agreements with their unions, which can complicate the process. In San Diego Unified, for instance, a principal must meet with a struggling teacher, create a plan to help them improve, and give them at least 50 work days to shape up before a final evaluation. That's just, like I said, unnecessary paperwork that's filled out and 50 days wasted on an ineffective teacher if they don't change their ways. And although it seems like a logical plan, 50 days really isn't a long enough time to change your entire teaching style. In How to Grade Teachers by Marcus A. Winters, he says, firing a tenured teacher is so difficult, in fact, that the process is often reserved only for those teachers who pose a physical threat to students. Only 8 out of the 45 terminations in New York City in 2008 through 2009 and 2009 through 2010 were related to teacher effectiveness, and 6 of those cases included other charges such as insubordination and misconduct. Why aren't these ineffective teachers being fired? In an article on Brief.com by Lori Higgins, she says, an American Federation of Teachers Michigan survey found it takes an average of 9 months to fire a bad teacher, but it could take a year and sometimes more to go through the full tenure process according to state law. There's so many other things that principals have to deal with that it's not worth it to them to fire insubordinate teachers with tenure. In the article How to Grade Teachers by Marcus A. Winters, he says, a survey of principals in Chicago by the New Teacher Project found that 30% of principals who admitted to inflating their evaluations did so in part because giving a low rating wasn't worth the cost. The bad teacher would be dismissed anyways. In the same article, he says, the problem, however, is that the due process required to fire a tenured teacher is so burdensome and so unlikely to succeed that few principals attempt to remove even their worst teachers. Los Angeles, for example, fires on average roughly 1 teacher out of every 1,000. Not only is the process lengthy and time-consuming for principals, it could mean a big waste of time if the teacher's case ends up getting dropped anyways. That brings me to our last claim, which is teacher tenure is costly. An article in the Sioux Falls Times by Grant Parkman claims, in addition to paying the employee's salary during a hearing, a district must retain outside counsel for which they pay $200 per hour. Additionally, the district must pay a hearing officer, a mediator that's agreed upon by both the district and the accused teacher. Districts can pay as much as $800 per day for a hearing officer. One hearing officer gets $800 a day, why isn't that going to better people's education instead of trying to fire an ineffective teacher that isn't teaching anyways? In the same article, an example of a teacher tenure case, a Longwood English teacher with a history of DWIRS, Ms. Cardone, received more than $23,000 in pay increases over a 4-year stretch, despite not having set foot in a classroom during that time. She was paid more than $219,000 in her final 2 years of employment with the district, despite not working a day while she was on so-called paid reassignment. If the case had been dropped against her, the district would have spent all that money for nothing. This is a prime example as to why teacher tenure just ends up hurting the district financially in the end.